are here today on the eve of World Mental Health Day, and this significant day merits even more attention in COVID-19 times. The outbreak of the pandemic has disrupted the lives of families and caused tremendous stress among children. The closure of schools has led to adverse effects on their learning and development, while seeing their families suffer due to illness and experiencing the demise of their parents undoubtedly has been traumatic. We have gathered here today to celebrate the Palan program's journey, an initiative which is providing immediate relief to COVID-impacted children. I would like to invite Mr. Mukesh Kumar, Senior Vice President and Company Secretary of PVR Limited, to deliver the welcome note.
A very good evening to all of you. I would like to extend my warm welcome to our chief guest for the day, Sri Rajendra Pal Gautamji, Minister of Women and Child Development, Ms. Ranjana Prasad, Member DCPCR, Dr. Rashmi Singh, Special Secretary cum Director, Department of WCD and Department of Social Welfare, and Dr. Amit Singh, Director, Children First, and all the distinguished guests present today. It's an honor to have all of your presence on the eve of World Mental Health Day, which is celebrated around the world to raise awareness on mental health issues. Dear guests, the world has passed through a very turbulent time due to COVID pandemic. We all have been gravely impacted by it in one or the other way. And it has been very disturbing effect on everyone's mental health. People have lost their near and dear ones. Migrant laborers and daily wage earners have lost their source of livelihood. Not being able to support the family needs due to loss of income, fear of contracting the virus, forced to stay away from friends and relatives, unavailability of education has taken a toll on people's mental health, including children. Children are facing anxiety, depression, lack of confidence at young age. Thus, it is important that we all should do something for this mental health. However, the silver lining is the fact that we celebrate this year World Mental Health Day at a time when we are gradually recovering from the devastation of COVID caused for last 1.5 years. With cases coming down and vaccination picking up across the country, I am hopeful that situation will get better very soon. PVR has been known to be a leader in cinema industry with over 20 years of experience in providing quality services to its customers. I am glad to share that PVR Nest, the CSR arm of PVR Cinemas, is hosting today's program. It gives me immense pleasure to see PVR Nest working so closely in accordance with United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 11, which aims to make safe, resilient, and sustainable cities for all. It believes in the concept of providing safe cities, which also empowers women and children. Some of the Nest's key initiatives in the direction have been childscapes to ensure holistic care and protection of children, Safe Center to promote menstrual hygiene, Palan to support COVID impacted children in association with Delhi Department of Women and Child Development. I would like to thank Delhi Government's Department of Women and Child Development to have come up with a dynamic response initiative like Palan, which has started to support children deeply impacted by COVID. I am thankful to the department for providing the opportunity to RANI Fund, which is an entity of Bijli Family Trust and also PVR Nest to contribute to this unique initiative in their own way of providing immediate relief to the children. Palan is based on public-private partnership model, where both the government and the private sector share their ideas so as to ensure that the benefit reaches to the child as quickly as possible. The government does not lack resources, but partnership and collective efforts works the best. And that is why I believe that our small effort will lead to overall development of the society. I would like to especially acknowledge, as a citizen of this nation, that the work of Delhi government under the leadership of Sri Arvind Kejriwal ji, Sri Manish Sisodiya ji, Sri Rajendra Pal Gautam ji, and all senior officials like you have transformed the way government functions. The transformational changes in the education, health, child and women care, and people-friendly approach has become yardstick across the world to measure success. With this, I welcome you once again and thank you for supporting us. Thank you.
I now request Mr. Vaibhav Chawla to present a musical performance for all of us. Vaibhav Chawla is a singer-songwriter and music producer who loves blending various music genres to narrate different stories. Let's welcome him on stage.
Hi everyone. So I'm going to begin with a very special anthem that I got to compose for PVR Nest. So this is how it goes. Let's make this world a better place with sustainable development, with hearts, bodies and minds. Together we can stretch our wings, make our living better, and save this nation as our motto for life. PVR Nest, making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable for everyone. So nothing starts the show with a little bit of singing, and I'm going to sing this first song, which is a very popular number. It's called Kolo Kolo by Shankar Sandroy. लेके अपने राजी सारी अभी अभी है तारी जिंदगी तो है बताशा मीठी मीठी सी है आशा चख ले रख ले हथेली से इसे ढक ले तुझ में अगर प्यास है बारिश का घर भी पास है रोके तुझे कोई क्यों भला समझो तेरे आकाश है तू धूप है जम से बिखर तू है नदी ओ बेखबर मैं चल कहीं उड़ चल कहीं दिल खुश जहां तेरी तो मंजिल है वही क्यों इस कदर हैरान तू मौसम का है मेहमान तू खोलो खोलो दरवाजे पर्दे करो किनारे खुली ज़बानी हवा मेरे कुछ रास लड़े खो गया आसमां का रास्ता देखो खुल गया मिल गया हो गया तो जो सितारा मिल गया रोशन हुई सारी जमीन जगमग हुआ सारा जहां उड़ने को तू आजाद है अंदर कोई अब है कहाँ तू धूप है जम से बिखर तू है नदी ओ बेखबर मैं चल कहीं उड़ चल कहीं दिल खुश जहां तेरी तो मंजिल है वही क्यों इस कदर हैरान तू मौसम का है मेहमान तू थैंक यू
Thank you, Vaibhav, for so beautifully opening the doors to our program with Kholo Kholo Darwaze. As Mr. Mukesh Kumar had shared, the pandemic has had a very disturbing effect on everyone's mental health, especially children. We have with us today Senior Child and Adolescent Psychiatrist and Director of Children First, Dr. Amit Sen, who works with children to provide them a safe space away from distress. I would like to invite him to deliver the keynote address.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be a part of this forum today. I feel so good that PVR Nest has been able to gather such eminent, not just eminent, but also people who work for children, for their welfare, for their protection on the ground. So this is very, very important, I believe, this forum, in today's day particularly. तो मैं चाहूँगा कि आपके साथ कुछ हमारे जो experiences रहे हैं from Children First, and Children First is an organization which no doubt works with children, adolescents जिनको development को लेकर या उनके mental health को लेकर दिक्कतें आ सकती हैं, लेकिन हम काफ़ी काम कम्युनिटी के साथ करते हैं, स्कूल्स के साथ, कॉलेजेस के साथ, NGOs के साथ और दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट के साथ। तो उसके बारे में अगर फुर्सत मिले मैं कुछ बताऊंगा आपको, लेकिन सबसे पहले आई वॉन्ट टू से वेरी वेरी एम्फैटिकली दैट I believe that child and adolescent mental health is hugely neglected and unnoticed. अभी कोविड के बाद शायद हमारे नजरें खुली हैं, समझ आया है हमें कुछ as to what this is all about. But I want to hold in front of you a picture of how child and adolescent mental health looked even before COVID. So just bear with me as I take you through this. तो ये देखिए कि 2005 में भी WHO ने एक बहुत बड़ा स्टडी किया था अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड, और उसमें उन्होंने, और इंडिया उसमें शामिल था, हजारों बच्चों के साथ काम किया था, सर्वे किया, जहाँ पे उनको मिला कि 20% बच्चों के अंदर चाइल्ड एंड मेंटल हेल्थ प्रॉब्लम्स, यानी एक डायग्नोजेबल मेंटल हेल्थ डिसऑर्डर दिखता है 20%। और उन्होंने ये भी प्रिडिक्ट किया था कि इसी तरीके से अगर चलता है तो बाय 2020 उसमें और 50% की बढ़ोतरी होगी, यानी 30% मिल जाएगा वो, है ना। खैर 2020 में तो कोविड आ गया, बल्कि 2019 में आ गया कई जगह पे, और उसके असर की वजह से एक्चुअली द नंबर्स वेंट अप मच मोर, एंड आई टेक यू थ्रू दैट। मैं थोड़ा उसका भी जिक्र करूंगा बाद में, लेकिन ये भी जानना जरूरी है कि कोविड से पहले भी 18 साल होने तक 25% of adolescents would have an episode of clinical depression. I'm not talking about sadness or disappointment. I'm talking about the illness depression. Yani 1 in 4 young person would actually go through depression. And also, it's a very disturbing and humbling statistic or a finding that India has the highest suicide rates amongst adolescents and the youth. Or अलग-अलग जगहों पे. In fact, I was in another meeting yesterday when there was another person from the US, an expert who had come, and he was talking about how suicide is the second most common cause for death in adolescents in US. हमारे यहाँ it's the number one cause of death, right? Yes, number one cause of death in adolescents. That's what it is. Indeed, and of course, as I said, that it's largely neglected. It is unnoticed. And it has a profound effect on growth and development. बच्चों के ऊपर क्या बीतती है और उनके ग्रोथ विकास में इतना गहरा असर पड़ता है, वो बाद में पता चलता है। उनके मेंटल हेल्थ और उनके बिहेवियर्स जो हमारे सोसाइटी में जो दिखता है अक्सर, that strife that we see, the conflict and the polarizations that we see, often are a result of the impact of these kind of things, mental health difficulties in childhood. तो ये देखिए, ये अगेन कुछ आंकड़े हैं यहाँ पे। 75% of all mental health problems begins before the age of 25. That's a huge number. You can imagine that, right? Yeah. And the number of suicides per day in India is 24, which means एक घंटे में एक युवक अपने आप को खत्म कर देता है. This is actually very hardcore statistic. In fact, this is probably an underestimate. 2012 में एक स्टडी किया गया था जो Lancet, the Lancet is one of the top peer-reviewed journals in the world, and it came out with figures of 63,000 young people who had, ended their lives in the year 2012. So if you again, sort of make the calculations, you get to know. And again, on an average, and these are probably international figures, that it takes 10 years for a child to get any kind of help. And the reason for this is that हमारे पास जो resources हैं, specialists कह लीजिए, services कह लीजिए, बहुत ही कम है बच्चों के लिए, बच्चों के खासकर mental health के लिए. तो हमें बिल्कुल अलग तरीके से सोचने की जरूरत होती है फिर कि क्या जरूरतें हैं. तो फिर से देखिए कि 40% of the Indian population is below 20 years of age, which makes it 500 million. तो बच्चे और adolescents को अगर देखें तो 20 साल से नीचे 500 हैं, और उसमें से अगर हम बड़े कंजर्वेटिव एस्टिमेट लगाएं कि 10 से 20% बच्चों में मेंटल हेल्थ डिफिकल्टीज हैं, तो वो बनता है, उसके आंकड़े बनते हैं 50 to 100 मिलियन चिल्ड्रन हु नीड मेंटल हेल्थ सर्विसेज. सोचिए, इसको कंपेयर कीजिए, 50 to 100 मिलियन, इट्स मोर देन द साइज ऑफ 2 Australias. That's the kind of numbers we have of children who need mental health services. Or this is all before COVID struck us. Can you imagine that, right? So what happened when COVID struck us? Oh my goodness, COVID is an unprecedented phenomenon. तो ऐसे जो हमारे साथ बीती है as a society, as a community, हम सब के साथ is something that we couldn't have imagined कि ऐसा भी हो सकता है हमारी जिंदगी में. इस तरीके से हमारी जिंदगी बदल सकती है, and we could never have been prepared for it. So obviously I'm sure we'll all agree that it's a global disaster, partly natural and partly man-made, and it's been deeply traumatic and damaging to everyone concerned, particularly children, because when we have a disaster like this, then the people who get the most affected are children. I don't know whether we have the scope to go into why that is, but I can tell you that it is indeed one of the key things that affects children's development and mental health. And of course, it is left up with paralyzing fear, some real, some imagined, and which is there even today. Even today, I don't think, although there's a glimmer of hope, we're coming out of it. अभी हमारे कुछ दरवाजे खुल रहे हैं, कुछ आशाएं शायद जग रही हैं, और ये आंकड़े भी तो आपने देखे होंगे कई लोगों ने कि हमारे दिल्ली के शहर के अंदर 268 children were completely orphaned, meant that they had no parents left after the COVID crisis, where either both parents had passed away, or in some families it was a single parent family and that parent is no more. So, and 5,500 children lost at least one parent. But those, of course, are deeply, deeply affected by of the loss, of the grief, of the trauma. But what about the children who have witnessed it from close? जिनके हो सकता है नानी या दादाजी गुजर गए हैं, या बेस्ट फ्रेंड के उनके पेरेंट कोई गुजर गया है, उनके पड़ोस में कुछ हो रहा है, जहाँ पे हर वक्त वो एक हवा सा है कि किसी को कुछ हो जाएगा, या जिनके पेरेंट्स को कोविड हुआ था और वो हॉस्पिटल चले गए 2 हफ्ते के लिए, and these children felt completely abandoned. Think of the trauma and the emotional crisis they would have gone through. And that trauma as witness also is a deep impact which can last you for your lifetime. And that's also important. So we have lakhs of children who have got affected by that, right? So, and over on top of the infection itself, जो deaths हुई हैं, losses हुई हैं, उसके अलावा भी lockdown का भी एक असर रहा है. Because there's been a disruption of daily life, जो routines होते हैं, जो rhythms होते हैं, जिससे बच्चों को एक तरीके से एक scaffolding सा होता है, जो पकड़े रखता है बच्चों को. When life is predictable, you feel that you're in control. उससे सिक्योरिटी मिलती है, और जब वो खत्म हो जाता है, जो कि हुआ है, अभी तक स्कूल्स खुले नहीं हैं, तब there is a huge feeling that all the anchors are broken, and there is a loss of identity also. कि अगर मैं स्कूल नहीं जा रहा हूँ, मेरे दोस्तों के साथ नहीं हूँ, अगर मैं गिटार नहीं बजा सकता या फुटबॉल टीम में नहीं हो सकता, तो मैं कौन हूँ? जो आइडेंटिटी फॉर्म होती है बच्चों में, उसके ऊपर भी बहुत गहरा असर पड़ा है. And there of course has been a loss of pleasure and joy and disconnect from the community. You talk about birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, getting together as families, सब कुछ खत्म हो चुका है बच्चों के लिए. तो उसका असर क्या हुआ होगा उन पे? And that is also a very profound and deep impact, right? It has given rise to intense emotions like frustration, helplessness, disbelief. कि कैसे हो सकता है हमारे साथ? Hopelessness and helplessness all the time, yeah? Sense of loss, grief, fear, anxiety, trauma, all of that. ये सब कुछ हुआ है हमारे बच्चों के साथ, हम सबके साथ हुआ है actually in some form or the other, right? लेकिन बच्चों के साथ जब ये ऐसा होता है, so there is a breakdown of the very development, जहाँ पे बच्चे ट्रस्ट करना सीखते हैं, जहाँ पे उनकी जो फाउंडेशन है इमोशनल वो बनती है, वही टूट सकता है ऐसे हालातों में. So what are the consequences of mental health consequences of COVID? एक तो immediate effect होता है, जब आप देखते हैं कोई crisis को. सोचिए, I'm sure that some of you would have actually seen COVID from very close. हो सकता है आपके family में हुआ हो, या हो सकता है you might have some losses also of near and dear ones, of close friends. और जब ऐसा होने लगता है, and when there is a crisis and you can't find a bed for for somebody close to you, or you don't have oxygen, then you either freeze and become completely numb, or you go to the other extreme of absolute panic and despair. तो शुरुआत में ऐसा होता है, लेकिन अगर उसको जाने दें और सोचें कि अब तो क्राइसिस हो गया है, खत्म हो गया है, some people who got COVID have recovered from it, but in the medium term, that stress that you go through can give rise to a range of disorders like anxiety, depression, addictive behaviors and self-harm. और यहाँ मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि WHO ने एक और स्टडी की है जहाँ पे इंडिया शामिल नहीं था लेकिन बहुत सारे और देश थे in the world, where they found that there has been a 5-time increase in anxiety, depression, substance misuse, and suicide in young people from the age group of 15 to 25. 5-fold. तो अगर हम पहले सोच के चलते हैं कि 5 से 10% बच्चों में वैसे ही mental health difficulties थी, तो सोचिए कितने में होंगे अभी तो it's more than 50%, 60% maybe, you know. So those are the kind of things we are dealing with, and then at the end of it all, we have to face the long-term consequences. तो अगर हम ये सोच के चलें कि जब ये कोविड खत्म हो जाएगा तो मेंटल हेल्थ प्रॉब्लम्स भी खत्म हो जाएंगी, that is the biggest mistake we make, because इसका जो असर है that will unfold over years to come. I don't know how many of you have experienced and seen this in people, जो जिनके साथ ट्रॉमा होता है, अब्यूज होता है, जिसके साथ बड़े लॉसेस होती हैं, जो कुछ किसी नेचुरल डिजास्टर से गुजरते हैं जैसे सुनामी या अर्थक्वेक, उन पे जो असर है वो रहता है सारी जिंदगी अक्सर. And that is what we are dealing with. We are dealing with lakhs and millions of children who might actually begin to show symptoms of mental illnesses as time comes. So we have a huge job at hand, you know. It of course impacts relationships, as I said, trust. It breaks down communities. ये सारी चीजें होती हैं, and relationships with not just people but with spaces. जैसे relationship with hobbies, with education, you know, with nature, with animals. ये सारी जो हैं relationships जो हैं, connect जो हैं, वो खत्म हो जाती हैं during और हो गई है कोविड के टाइम पे. And of course there is a disintegration of community as well. But there has also been some learnings. जो लोग यहाँ इससे गुजर के, if they have come out successful in the way they have dealt with the stress and the losses, उनमें resilience भी होता है. There is a German philosopher called Nietzsche who said that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I'm not a complete believer in that, but I think there is some truth in it, right? If you're able to successfully overcome very severe stress and trauma, then sometimes you come out of it feeling, if I can handle this, I can handle anything in life. है ना? तो ये चीज भी होता है और ये हुआ भी है. The other thing that is actually we've seen, particularly in Delhi and many other places, I'm sure, is how people have come out into the community, on the streets to help each other. People have, you know, gone out of their way to look for oxygen, for hospital beds. I know of young 19, 20-year-olds, you know, college students who have, you know, did not sleep for nights together just to find these resources for families who are suffering. I know of young girls who have actually gone out looking for, जब एक crisis आया था ना एक बीच में जब when people were dying at a rate when there was no place to actually take them for cremation, and these little kids from colleges were actually helping families, supporting them, and trying to find them spaces where they could cremate their dead. You know, of course, it had an effect on their own mental health, but that's altruism, and that helps you to believe in humanity again. You know, and it's something that makes you heal as well. And of course, people form new connections, new bonds. I've seen that happen, you know, in different communities of doctors and teachers. Teachers have come together so well in many schools. And of course, it has exposed what we call the fault lines in our society, you know, the big divides of rich versus poor, or the fault lines in education systems and health systems, and it's a new learning. And it has given us an opportunity to do something different. एक तरीके से एक चुनौती है, लेकिन एक अपॉर्चुनिटी भी है ये हमारे लिए कि हम कुछ नया करें, कुछ अलग से करें और तरीके से देखें मेंटल हेल्थ को, और मेंटल हेल्थ को करीबी से देखें. इट्स सो सेंट्रल. अगर वो नहीं रहा, अगर इमोशनल स्टेबिलिटी नहीं रही, तो कुछ नहीं हो सकता है. एंड दैट्स एन इम्पोर्टेंट लेसन दैट वी कैन डू. सो what do we do in these COVID times is the question there. From mental health point of view, we can build communities again, right? And ये आप लोग कर रहे हैं. खासकर दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट के जो कुछ पहले से प्रोग्राम्स चल रहे थे, जिनके साथ हम Children First जुड़ा हुआ है already, like, you know, with the Ministry of Education, we have actually, and the happiness curriculum, we have worked with the mentor teachers, and we have helped them to rebuild their community. क्योंकि उनके अंदर भी ऐसे एक हताशा आ गया था, hopelessness आ गया था कि अब कुछ नहीं हो सकता है. क्योंकि उनके अंदर भी, you know, some of their colleagues passed away, some of their family members passed away, and their connection with teachers and families, it broke down. And we have worked with that. So building and looking for resources within the community. And one of the resources in the community are young people themselves. और ये हमारे इस दौरान, इस टाइम पे में हमें दिखा है अक्सर कि जो यंग लोग हैं, एडोलेसेंट्स हैं, टीनेजर्स हैं, यंग एडल्ट्स हैं, वो किस तरीके से अपने आप को इस क्राइसिस में अपने आप को रख सकते हैं और दे कैन गिव सो मच ऑफ देमसेल्व्स एंड दे आर सो सच ब्राइट इन creative people, young people are, that I think that is a big resource in the community and we have to tap into that, right? And building awareness and understanding about mental health दिखता कैसा है, अगर कब कहेंगे आप एक बच्चे को कोई तकलीफ है, ये भी जानना बहुत जरूरी है कि जब बच्चों को इमोशनल डिफिकल्टीज होती हैं, it comes out in the form of behaviors, bad behavior. Sometimes adults would say, they are defiant, they are angry, they might have temper tantrums, they might stop listening to you, but the undercurrent of that, the underlying phenomena, is an emotional disturbance that they can't handle. That's why you see the behaviors, and it's important for as adults, as stakeholders, as parents, to understand that, and that building awareness and understanding has to come at this time. अगर अभी नहीं करेंगे पता नहीं कब करेंगे, and this is the opportunity when so many of you are here together to come together and say that we are going to do it. So engage adolescents and youth and prioritize mental health, and we can definitely do that. I think this is the time that is a new opportunity to prioritize mental health, to understand the impact of it, to understand indeed the education department in Delhi is clear that in the beginning when these students have come back, in September, October, there'll be no emphasis on studies. The only thing they will do is build community again. They will look at their emotional health. Even the Ministry of Health is doing the same. So we've just started another initiative, a pilot project with the Ministry of Health of Delhi government to set up clinics in schools which will not just address physical health but have a great emphasis on mental health as well, because they've understood that if we can get that right, बाकी चीजें अपनी जगह धीरे-धीरे सेटल होने लगेंगी. Education can follow. Education में बहुत टाइम नहीं लगता बच्चों को. एक बार अगर वो संतुलन है अंदर से तो वो सीख पाएंगे. अगर संतुलन नहीं है तो everything will get disrupted. So with that, I think I'll also, yes, of course, collaborating with other agencies like in the government department itself. There's so many departments. आप लोग हैं women and child से और education and health is already doing something to collaborate with that, collaborate with NGOs, with CSR initiatives like this, schools and professionals and experts. ये चीज समझना बहुत जरूरी है कि हम in double quick time we cannot produce too many experts and professionals. So we have to bank on the community and see what the resources are out there to do preventive work, so that this effect of trauma does not unfold in years to come. And with that, I think I'll stop. And this is again a quote that I really like from one of my heroes and people I admire, Nelson Mandela. He said, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear. So we've all gone through fear. We've all gone through suffering. But it is the triumph over it. So if we are able to learn from it, if we are able to overcome it, to say we'll probably only become stronger and we'll be able to help our children better."